Hello, my educator family, and let me welcome you to another Analysis Thursday, right here with Carla Boswell-Lewis, Director for Strategic Educational Consultancy Services. We are in the month of, you guessed it right, Adaptable August. Why is it adaptable? Because we believe that as school administrators and the leaders within our right, that we need to become adaptable to what is happening around us and so be able to plan for the new school year that is coming up. And so for this month, we have been featuring school administrators who would have stepped up to the plate of administration to do things a little bit novel to ensure that the business of teaching and learning still exists and is still operating. And we had our second feature with Mrs. Anne Smikle-Jones, who is the principal at Mizpah Primary in Manchester, a very small primary school, but she gave us rich experiences to which we can all relate to as to how we can go about ensuring that we take care of the needs of not only the children, but our staff members around us. And so with us is our new analyzer, yes, Mrs. Carty, who is also a vice principal herself, acting at Frankfield Primary in the parish of Manchester as well. And so welcome again to you, Mrs. Carty. And we're looking forward to your insightful analysis points for us on Analysis Thursday. Go ahead.
Thank you once again for having me, Mrs. Boswell-Lewis. And it is really good to be here, Adaptable August. And I really listened into Mrs. Smikle-Jones, and I'm happy that you were able to get the perspective of someone from a smaller school and to see how they would have managed, because I'm sure we can learn from her as well. And so one of the things I noted this time around was that she, at the beginning, when we would have been sent home to work online or so, she would have gotten her staff together and they had their discussions as to what is the way forward. And I think that was wonderful. Right. She got the input of everyone.
Awesome. Yes, I really enjoy that. Sometimes we tend to go off tangent. So we want a particular approach, but we don't seek to get the buy-in. So when everyone is in the idea, it makes it easier because you know that everyone would have contributed, and so they are now working towards one goal as opposed to the administrator selecting an avenue without the consensus. So that for me was excellent as well.
Right. And you know, I noted that she was able with the team to identify straight up some challenges they were going to have. They could easily think and say, all right, we are going to have, it's a rural community that the school is located, and the children are pulled from the surrounding rural communities. And so she could say, okay, we're going to have a Wi-Fi problem. We're going to have a device issue. Device issue not only for students, but also teachers. And they were able as a team to say, yes, these were the challenges, and here are some solutions to these problems. And so the teachers didn't have device or Wi-Fi. They were able to come to the school. And so right away, they had the solutions there. And I found it wonderful that for students who were in the community who did not have Wi-Fi and they were relying heavily on data, she would have spoken to community members and they volunteered their homes and their Wi-Fi free to these students. So right away, we could see partnerships being formed to help the students grow.
Can I tell you, Mrs. Carty, I'm really having goosebumps because when I listened in, I was like, whoa, this is such a rich, little about Talawa. This is such a rich experience that all administrators need to hear. Teachers alike too need to hear, because when I heard she was giving thanks to these persons and mentioning that there are stakeholders within the community who opened their doors to the children. I said, whoa, isn't that amazing? That even amid the pandemic and people were worried about the virus, there were still good-hearted people out there who would have trust enough to say, listen, these are children who need to get access to education. Let me help. And so it tells us that within our context, within our sphere of influence, we have to do all that we can do to ensure that the business of teaching and learning goes on. And for me, that was very commendable. I reached out to her after and I was like, Mrs. Smikle-Jones, I really appreciate the depth at which you went to ensure that your small school was still spinning the wheel for education. That is commendable.
Oh, yes, it certainly was, and she recognized too that, hey, the children are going to need worksheets. And I know the challenge is there when it comes to providing the worksheets and getting it to them, but they provided the worksheets for the children. They had a set day to say, okay, worksheets collection is here. We're going to mark on this day, give it back to you on this day. So you can see the organization. So it's not a matter of, oh, today it is something and we're going to do it. No, it's a planned approach to engaging the nation's children that she and her team were entrusted. And it was really, really commendable. And note too that she recognized that as a leader, she was not able to know all of the things when it comes on to technology. She recognized that and she wasn't afraid to say, I don't know. And when they were discussing, they said, okay, other staff members also will need help with this. And you know what I noted? They would have gotten help from NCEL and other workshops and developmental workshops to help the teachers, but there was someone at the school who was identified who could help them. And it's different getting help from somebody who you work with. And so you're building that teacher who is sharing, and the teacher who is sharing is also building those who need to know. And I found that commendable as well.
Absolutely. And it goes back to the first you picked, Mr. Largy, where he mentioned that going forward, we need collaboration and communication. And we could have seen that in the approach taken by Mrs. and Smikle-Jones at Mizpah Primary, because not only was communication going on with them as a staff, there were parents, there were stakeholders outside of the remit of the physical school setting that were involved in what was going on. And I keep saying to educators, we are teaching the students to be responsible. As educators, we must demonstrate that level of responsibility, not because a lot of persons passed on the fact that things are unorganized at school because it's COVID. No, it should never be. It should be that it is during that time you muster all the strength and the courage that you have to ensure that things are organized, because it is already unstable for the students and the teachers. So if as a leader you are going to be unstable, what message are you sending across to the school community? And for me, that was very commendable. I just loved Sunday's presentation. Yes, Mr. Largy did an excellent job, but to know that this is the contextualization is different. It's a small school, a rural school. People don't have access to data, people don't have access to smartphone, and yet still in all of that, education remain at the forefront. I really enjoyed it.
Yes. And she would have, and linking with the first presentation for Adaptable August, plus this one, you recognize, as you rightfully said, you have to look at your own place, your own context, and see what is best for your institution, for your school family. And that is exactly what she did. She learned from others and she said, this is what we can do, and the communication lines were always open. They were open for sure. And my last point, Boswell-Lewis, is that there was accountability. Notice she asked for weekly reports from class teacher. Yes, there were lesson plans handed in, but then there were weekly reports coming from teacher, not only about what was happening in class, but also who are the children that you have not gotten. And so with the guidance counselor, something is organized to see, okay, let us go and check on this one. What does this child need and how can we meet these needs? And I really love that as well. So then, as she said, no child is left behind because education is a business.
Awesome. And you know what I thought too, that gave way to the level of organization and the reach out, the fact that she herself, she's a trained guidance counselor. And so that level of care and that level of, oneness and seeking and finding and getting answers, I think that was a plus on her side. So she knew exactly what the context was. And then so in the first get-go, she was able to identify the possible problems that would come up along the way and how to deal with it. And I thoroughly enjoyed this week's presentation. I was really, it was a proud moment for me to see that even though it's a small school, rural school, they stood to the task and they got what needed to be done. And so on behalf of Mizpah Primary, I just want to say to those stakeholders, you are out there, the teachers, continue to work in that regard. If we had more communities like that, can you imagine what school would be like? Because most of the times, as I alluded on Sunday, that not all schools are created equal. It's a term that they use because based on your context and where you're at, there's something that are going to become disposable to you. Others you're not going to have. But, if we ensure that we give as much as we can and we become that eye, to others, it should really work well. And I really enjoyed it. And I noticed that she even mentioned about going forward. There were glitches, even though it was well organized, there were glitches, but going forward, they'll be working those to ensure that it becomes smoother as they progress. And it was commendable.
Right, because she could easily say, okay, this is what we have tried, and going forward is what we need to do. And I like the honesty that she came with. I just love the honesty. It really reached me. The honesty is there. These are our weaknesses. These are our strengths. And this is what we are going to do as we move forward, And oftentimes we may say, oh, it's a small school, we don't need to. And I love, as you said, the care came out. The care came out because everybody's child is important. Educating of each mind is important. And you could hear it in what she had to say and what the staff as a team did to ensure that they reach as many as they possibly can.
Yes. And so do you have any final comments or is it it? This is it for us. Well, as I've always said, go ahead.
Right. As what I want to bring out of what Mrs. Smikle-Jones would have shared is that we have to tap into our strengths as an institution, tap into the strengths that we have in a community, because the school is not just by itself. As the school serves a community. And so we have the various stakeholders. So we need to tap into the strengths of the various stakeholders, because educating of anybody is not just about the teacher, but about all the stakeholders who have to influence that child's life. And so when you go forward, as she said, communicating, having persons together, discussing, and ensuring everybody knows where we want to go so we can get there and how we are going to do it. That is also important.
Awesome. Indeed, it is. And so, as we progress educators, we have heard so far 2 experiences. And within ourselves, we should be able to look at whether you're a classroom teacher or you're an administrator, look into these things and see what is it that you can adapt as we're in the month of Adaptable August, what is it that you can adapt to meet the needs of the students who you are going to be serving for the new school year. We know not what lies ahead, but what we know is that there is power in what we do. And if we unite our efforts and we really become reflective in what we do, we will be able to deal with the challenges that will face us and how we can smooth the path as we go forward. This was Analysis Thursday, and on Sunday, we're going to be having an international view. We'll be having a principal from Canada who will be sharing how it was for her during COVID. So we're not only looking at our local schools, but how is it internationally? What has been going on in that realm? And so I want to thank you again, Mrs. Carty, for being with us. And educators, whatever we do, it's to empower you, and we're empowering ourselves, and we trust that once that is done, our countries, wherever we serve, the children who are our main priorities, they will benefit from it. Walk good, take care, enjoy the weekend that's coming up, and set aside some time to hear the international perspective on Sunday for Strategy Sunday. Thank you so much, everyone.